let's kick it off with Travaris Harris, who's going to represent Cabrillo College. And I applaud all of our members who are leaders of our educational institutions in our Tri-County and who are longtime MBEP members. So thank you for being here. We'll kick it off with you. Who are you? What do you do? And what institution are you representing?
Thank you. I am Travaris Harris. I'm the Vice President of Instruction at Cabrillo College, which covers Santa Cruz County, parts of northern Monterey, and parts of San Benito County.
Hi, I'm Cindy Larive. I'm the Chancellor at UC Santa Cruz. My mic is on. Yeah. Hi, I'm Cindy Larive. I'm the Chancellor at UC Santa Cruz. And I'm a former MBEP board member, so it's pleased to be here to see the state of the region.
Thank you.
Does it work now? Okay, it works. I'm Michael Gutierrez. I'm the superintendent president at Hartnell College. And as I look at my picture there, I've been there for 3.5 years, and I'm recognizing that my goatee is completely black there, and it's not black anymore. Hartnell College serves North County, Salinas, and the Salinas Valley, all the way to the southern part of the county.
And your caption is incorrect. Let me point that out. It's Hartnell College.
Well, now you're on a minority advisor, see? You changed your job. Can I have an advice here?
Cindy said I got a promotion there as majority advisor, so.
He's now a lobbyist.
Hi, everybody. We met this morning. I'm Vania. I'm the president here at Cal State Monterey. And I think I look pretty the same. Let me see.
Well, let's jump in. Let's talk about headwinds and challenges given the state and federal landscape and climate, from funding to social to political impact. I'm curious, how has that impacted your institutions and your students specifically?
So, is this on? So for us at Cabrillo, one of the most significant impacts lately has been a drawbacks federally to MSI, minority serving institution funding, and in particular, historically serving institution grants. So we've used these grants to do things like build a science lab at our Watsonville Center that definitely needed this science lab. We've used it to expand our dual enrollment options, really trying to expand the pipeline of high school students with college credit coming out of high school. And when we lose this funding, it significantly impedes our ability to continue this program. We also have a great first year experience program that we use the funding for. So one of the things at Cabrillo that we've done, we've really looked at our demographics. So when you look at our area in Santa Cruz County, Watsonville, our students at the Watsonville Center are about 75% Hispanic. So this grant, although it does allow us to have additional programming for Hispanic students, it does reach all of our students at Cabrillo. But we're talking about the Watsonville Center in particular, where we have a high Hispanic student population, and they also have a 13.6% unemployment rate. So we're talking about the area that has the most need for workforce support, and we're pulling away those resources. So what we've done at Cabrillo is really double down on our commitment to serving this. And we are making a commitment to keep these programs going, to continue to advance the community, and continue to try to mitigate the impacts of the loss of funding. And we're doing that by braiding some of our funding from state funds, from the chancellor's office, some grants we're using, we're reallocating funds from other places, because these programs are important and they're necessary. And when we think about economic mobility, how can we have economic mobility when we're taking away resources where there's a 13.6% unemployment rate? And unfortunately, sometimes I think people think that this doesn't affect them because it's not their neighborhood, it's not their community. Well, a lack or decrease in economic mobility in any community affects economic viability in all of our communities. So we really have to double down. We really have to be more intentional about partnering with those of you in this room and making sure we keep these resources and supports in place for our students.
Yeah, I would echo what Travaris said about HSI grants. We also have been very active in seeking those grants, and they've done really wonderful things for us. It's supporting all of our students, not just our Hispanic students. We're a Hispanic serving institution like every other school represented here. We're also a research institution, and we do pretty amazing research, life-changing research that helps with new genomic testing, healthcare issues, and also things in the area of computer science, environmental solutions like nature-based solutions for coastal climate change. When the executive orders from the Trump administration canceled our grants, a number of them were initially canceled. And then we were able to file some lawsuits in partnership with other organizations like the AAU and APLU that helped us get those grants reinstated. That's probably not a long-term solution. And what's happening in DC is that funding for research is both being shifted in its priorities. It's also being slowed down in making awards. We have some people who have applied for a grant 14 months ago and got very favorable review scores, but still haven't gotten their grants. The most concerning thing to me as a chancellor and as a scientist is the apparent shift away from merit-based, peer-reviewed decisions that rank proposals. So research grant proposals are not an entitlement. They're something you earn, and it's very competitive. And now the federal government is thinking about giving people priorities based on things other than the merit of the work that the taxpayers will fund. So this idea has been fundamental to the success of this country for the last 70 years, since Vannevar Bush helped to create a compact between universities and their research and the federal government. That's where your iPhone, GIS, so many cancer treatments, so much more have really come from. It's academic research that gets commercialized. And we risk losing our edge economically and innovation-wise to the rest of the world.
Yes, all of that. And what I will add, because really great explanation by both Travaris and Cindy, from an administrative perspective, when you lose funding, as we have as well, it makes it very difficult to plan because you think you might have this money for 5 years and all of a sudden midway it gets cut. And there's staffing that's involved. We're in a unionized environment, so it's not as easy as just letting people go. And we don't really want to do that. And so we have to pivot and make adjustments on the fly. And I think one of the misrepresentation of minority serving institution or Hispanic serving institution is that the funding goes to a particular group. And the funding is really about increasing the institutional's capacity to serve. The key word being institution. And so an example of how we have increased the capacity for ourselves to serve our community is we use this funding to build our dual enrollment department so that students that are still in high school that may never have had an opportunity to be engaged with higher education, didn't even have an idea that they were going to go, can begin their higher education process and begin building units. We started off, when I got here 3 years ago, we were at about 650 students in dual enrollment. We're over 2,000 now in dual enrollment. And 95% of the students that are in dual enrollment end up going to higher education. 57 go to Hartnell, but the rest go other places. They could go to UC Santa Cruz, CSUMB, or another place. Again, not a particular group, but all our students.
It's hard to be the last one, but I'm just going to try to say something different. I agree with what was. So what is the translation of what we're saying? So cuts on the federal government cuts the innovation of all our institutions and therefore affect the workforce development to you at the long run. So it is like a direct line. So for example, our mechatronic engineering program was supported by a Hispanic serving institution grant. They supported the launch, they supported faculty and staff. And so when it was cut, we need to find funds from other aspects of the university to support that activity. If we didn't have that grant, we wouldn't be able to develop that program. And so at the long run, right now we have 110 students graduating. The first class of engineering is graduating this year. 80% of our students stay in the region. So these changes that are happening really will affect in the long run creative, new programs, new development of ideas, and also the workforce development. Besides the federal funds issues, we also have state fund issues. So both Cindy and I face UCs and CSUs. Our budget comes directly from Sacramento. And so we were last year battling an 8% cut on our total budget. So you can imagine Cal State Monterey Bay resized themselves 2 years ago, cutting $25 million, which is kind of substantial for the size of our university. And then 2 years later, we get an 8%, and then we also get federal money cuts. And so that affects retention, that affects graduation rates. Students come with their dream to be here, and we provide less services to support them. So on the long run, it's almost like a symbiotic change from community colleges, UC, CSU to U. And every time there is an economic fluctuation on our budget, it affects that we have to cut something that we develop to ensure that the students are supported. So it's a lot of pressure that we're having. We really, as it was said before, it's very hard to plan ahead. It's very hard to know exactly. We bring $145 million on research in this institution. It's small but mighty. But that research support agro, it supports so many different things. So it's very hard for us to be moving forward the needle, not knowing what is happening. And thank you.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate especially, Michael, you defining what an HSI institution, like what it means in the funding. There is so much a misunderstanding of that. If you're securing that kind of funding, what does it mean? What is it sort of, it's impacting a specific population, it's not equal for all population. So I really appreciated that, to riff on that a little bit further. I'm curious about the impact on the students, however. I know there's services you all provide, but has enrollment been impacted with the recent policies? Do you find more students seeking resources? I'm just sort of curious from a student and a parent perspective. I'm a stepmom to a SLUG graduate who went to UC Santa Cruz. I've got a couple of others in the pipeline. So I'm always sort of curious, just given what plays out in our state and political frame and our federal political arena. How are the students being impacted? What are you hearing, the chatter on campus, now that fall has been, the classes are back up again, starting with Vanya?
So there is two major things. First, the immigration pressures are really high. And so we have students that are terrified. Maybe they are citizens, but their families are not, or they have an aunt, or they have their network. And so you have this stress that is given, already compounding. Students today have a different profile. I started teaching on 1982, that's how old I am. And slowly you can see the changes on needs of students. But the students today, they have a lot of mental health support needs. They have a lot of basic needs support. And so adding the stress of not, should I come to class? What's going to happen? Should I fill the FAFSA because all the information of my parents are there and therefore they can track us down? So that's one of the major things that we have found. The second thing is the level of basic needs, all the way from food insecurity to housing insecurity to all of these other things. So as the economy, fluctuate because of the changes on tariffs and other things that are happening, then you can see how students come more to the food pantry, they need more help, they require more support. So I'm just gonna give an example. When we look at our Pell distribution, Pell is a federal grant that is given to students that have low income. We're tilted. 70% of our Pell recipients, they make less than $26,000 for a family of 4. California poverty is $46,000. So our students are really in need of support. in terms of financial support. So any fluctuation that happens on the economic aspect of it or the support of the university will affect the students that are more needed.
Thank you, Vanya. Leading during this time period requires a lot of patience, mainly because we need to understand that when you see executive orders come out, and they were coming out very quickly at the beginning of the calendar year, but there's a difference between intent and law. And this was intent. And so it requires a lot of patience to be able to work with your teams and keep panic from being down. And I'm not even talking about our students yet. I'm just talking about our colleges and universities. And so some of the messaging has been that we need to not act brand new to the situations, because many of the students that we see at Hartnell, their families have been dealing with this pressure and fear for decades. So it's not new, so let's not act brand new to them. And so let's remain calm and let's figure out what services we have. Let's figure out how we react as an institution to provide them services, or if ICE shows up on campus, or, which is probably unlikely, maybe that ICE shows up on campus, but what is more likely are things like hate speech that become prominent in the at the college. So how do we respond to things that are leaflets on the windshield of the cars, or graffiti, or things that are posted on our Blackboard or Canvas systems in online classes? So how do we respond to those kinds of things? Because that kind of hate is very hurtful to not only our students, but our employees, our people that are being impacted directly, or our allies. And so it is incredibly difficult to not only navigate, but to remain patient during this time period.
That's a really great perspective and advice. Thank you, Michael. And I'll just build on what Vanya and Michael said. I think at UC Santa Cruz, we haven't seen any decreases of enrollment. And I think that we have a great student body. I'm very proud of all of them. I think there are a couple of tensions that have been talked about. The fear of an ICE showing up on campus is one that many of our students have concerns about, or in the region because of family members or friends and relatives. We also have a real strong attention to basic needs. So at UC Santa Cruz, we have about 40% of our students who receive Pell Grants. And beyond that, students who are working their way through school, as many of us did, they need the kind of supports, and we have a robust basic needs infrastructure. One of the core pillars of that infrastructure is the Second Harvest Food Bank, which is in Santa Cruz County, our food bank. I know Monterey County has a very good food bank. And the funding cuts to food banks, to the SNAP program, I think are going to have long-term impacts, not just on our families in our regions, but also on young people, whether they're at community college or pursuing a four-year degree or in the workforce. Because of the high cost of living in our region, many folks find it hard to be able to both pay for housing and food, and the food banks help to support that effort. So I'm concerned about the longer-term impacts that we're going to see in our region, and then the downstream of that to our students. And I'll just also say mental health is something we also think very carefully about, trying to find build an inclusive campus environment that supports the students with the mental health issues they arrive on campus with in many cases.
And I completely agree with everything that has been shared. We do have students that are afraid to come to campus, and this has really changed the landscape of our jobs. We spend a lot more time trying to keep up with these executive orders and being able to articulate them to the community, because they're looking to us to understand, what does this mean? How does this impact me? What does my future look like? And we've talked a lot about financial aid. our funding in the state of California is directly tied to Pell eligibility. And now we have students that are no longer comfortable completing the FAFSA, that's the financial aid application for students, because they're worried about maybe not themselves, but their parents. What if my parent doesn't have information I could put on this form? What does that mean when I share my information on this form? What are the possible ramifications? All of these things are things our students are carrying when they should be thinking about going to school, what major I want to pursue, what school do I want to transfer to, what career do I want to go in. Now that's, am I going to be safe? Is the school going to protect me? What happens if ICE shows up, right? So we've completely changed what our students should be focusing on to things that we'd like for them not to have to focus on. And so as institutions, our jobs are also shifting in that we've talked a lot about different resources. Now we are more inclined and it's necessary to bring those resources to our campus. Now we need legal resources on our campus. Now we need, we have a nest at Cabrillo, food banks on our campus, all of these other social service resources, counseling resources. All of these really impede our students' ability to persist. And so in order to really help them, to support them, we have to change the way we do business. I appreciate the fact that we've been very nimble, but it's also taken away from other things we do well, and that's to simply educate our students so that they can go out and contribute to the greater community.
I appreciate that, and I really want to thank you all for lifting up the mental health piece and the hate speech and food insecurity, because institutions are also communities and how we support our young people and their families. A side note and a plug, I am a commissioner for the California Asian American Pacific Islander Commission. And just last week, we were gathered together an economic summit for the API community. And hate speech, online, verbal, et cetera, is literally at an all-time high in our nation. Whether it's directed at the African American community, the Latinx community, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. And I think it's something that we really always have to remember as individuals, as professionals, and of course, leaders of institutions. So thank you for naming that it comes in so many forms, and sometimes it's mitigating that of what's come on campus and through leaflets and online sort of harassment as well. So we're running the clock down, I can see. In the final sort of moments that we have together, what would you like to share with the audience? Or maybe do you have a project that you want to highlight or showcase or update? I know there's a lot of really cool things happening in our region. Or maybe you might want to talk about regional trends or workforce training opportunities that your institution is engaged in. What can our audience walk away with that's positive? Like, what should we be jazzed about? Give us an update on something. And we'll start with you, Tavares.
I think there are a few things. So we've down the room, so now we get to lift it back up, right? We have a lot of great partnerships. So we have a workforce development partnership where we offer up to $10,000 in scholarships to students. And with these partnerships, there's a lot of intentionality about providing the supports our students need. So in this partnership, our students persist at an 89% rate, and they're also leaving with the average salary of $75 an hour. That means an awful lot in this community because we need to put our community in a position to earn a livable wage. We also have a partnership that Senator Laird mentioned earlier with UCSC on affordable housing. So fall 2027, we'll have affordable housing on our campus. Yes. And I think going to community colleges in California is not cost prohibitive. Not working while you go to a community college in California is cost prohibitive. So providing affordable housing considerably opens up that pathway for so many more members of our community to be able to come, make a minimum wage while they're, not a minimum wage, but a median wage while they're in school, but also going to school full-time, living in housing that's affordable, and it allows them to go on that pathway to greater wage attainment and also really being able to provide for their families and moving forward. And we also have some academic programs that we're expanding. We're looking at an interdisciplinary drone program. We are expanding our fire and forestry program. And we also are looking at expanding our nursing program through a partnership to offer more CNA and more RN options, which also leads on a pathway to our four-year partners. And we're working intentionally with our partners to help open up those pathways for students.
So I want to just start by giving a shout out to Tara and to MBEP for leading the Uplift Central Coast Initiative, which has been so terrific for our region. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you.
And so at UC Santa Cruz, we have a program that's run through something called Citrus, which is one of the Gray Davis Institutes that were founded about 20 years ago. And through that Citrus Cider program, we offer drone training. And we've been doing this for quite a few years. And it's a way to help students who can be even in high school, get experience and be prepared to take the FAA drone pilot's test, which is really the first step to be getting a pilot's license. And there's a lot of great jobs that you can get with this kind of certification, everything from monitoring power lines to wildlife, agricultural fields. And so that program is going to be able to expand now to high schools and community colleges around the region and ultimately throughout the state. And I really am excited about what that's going to mean for our region and so proud of our teams to be part of that. The other thing I would highlight is that we started last year a post-baccalaureate program to help students prepare for health careers. So post-baccalaureate means you already have a bachelor's degree and maybe you weren't prepared to apply and be successful at medical or dental school, or maybe you're a career changer and you've decided that's a path you want to take. And we offer that at MBEST, which is just down the road, and we're now out offering it in Santa Clara. We expect to be able to impact roughly about 80 students this year. And so that's another way that we can help to build the healthcare workforce that we need in our region.
Our mission aligns very well with MBEP in that we advance the economic and social mobility of our students so that we can connect them to jobs with livable wages, or if they're transfer students, they actually do transfer and they finish their bachelor's degrees. So the partners up here, we have transfer partnerships as soon as students get into Hartnell with both CSUMB and UC Santa Cruz so that they not only begin their journey, but there's a warm handoff so they can finish their bachelor's degrees. And from an economic mobility standpoint, what you've heard this morning with healthcare, for example, and trying to deal with the nursing shortage and trying to build programs in allied health, that's what we're doing at our community college to help meet that need. And with air mobility at Hartnell, it really has forced us to look at our programs. Like we have the only ag mechatronics program in the state, but some of those students are becoming interns at Joby Aviation, and so they're moving into that job. So how do we take our existing program and expand it and not just have it focused on ag, but also now in air mobility? And then in ag tech, you're seeing the partnership that we have with Reservoir. If you see the Reservoir off of the farm right off of Highway 68 as you're going from Salinas to Monterey, that is really a joint venture partnership where startup companies are going to begin here in the Salinas Valley and hopefully stay here and create jobs so that our residents that want to stay here can get educated and trained and fill those jobs so that we're not having to import people to our area. We already have a housing shortage. We already have traffic issues. So let's just educate and train the people we have now to take those jobs.
Okay, so I'm just gonna profile, we only have 1 minute, so I'm just gonna go pretty fast. We are working really hard on having dual admission and having pipelines all the way from high school, 1 year high school, senior year high school, 2 years community college, 1 year CSUMB. We're also working with dual admission with both MPC and Hartnell. To ensure that the students that get accepted on the community colleges, they will have a pipeline, the same with UC. They have a pipeline that all the degrees are being articulated. Because one of the things that we really want to ensure is that we don't have a broken faucet, that it has holes. We have to have something that is completely straightforward to ensure that the students don't lose their steam, their financial aid, that they're really productive to finish their 4-year degree. I think great things are happening in Monterrey. I think the collaborations between all the community colleges and the 4-year schools is pretty strong. Our commitment, as I say this morning, is to concentrate on workforce development. And I think all 4 community colleges and the 2 4-year institutions on the region are committed to ensure that we have the ear with you. What do you need? We have examples of AgroSoil was developed by community input. Mechatronic was developed by community input. So our university really, really wants to ensure that we provide what you need, an AI concentration, request from community input. So please talk to us. We value your input, we value your needs, because it's almost a symbiotic relationship, and we're committed to ensure that we move the economy of this region forward. I went up a little bit, sorry.
No, you did great. It's barely, 30, 40 seconds. Let's give everyone an applause. They did an amazing job. Thank you so much. We appreciate what each and every institution does and what wonderful players they are in advancing the various economic mobility strategies. So thank you all.